Hello to all who connect to this video. Today we're having lecture number 45 of the 50 lectures that are the phase A of the self-knowledge course that we are broadcasting through this page every Sunday. And in this lecture, we will review some of the aspects that might be preventing us from having positive results in the different practices related to self-knowledge, as this is a totally practical path. So in these lectures, in the lectures that we have seen so far, we receive like the theoretical part of the practices. But if we want to experience advances in our private and internal esoteric path, we must practice. We must practice with perseverance and discipline. The fundamental thing beyond intellectually understanding the theoretical aspect of this path is to learn to achieve the practices. And why is it so important? It is important because we can study these lectures. We can study here about the purpose of our existence on this planet, about the number of cycles that are given to us as an opportunity or as opportunities to achieve self-realization, the passage through the different kingdoms of nature, the number of existences with a human physical body for each cycle, the process of physical death, the processes of the evolution, the involution, etc. But if we don't corroborate that information for ourselves through conscious astral projection or through transcendental meditation, this information will remain as worthless concepts that we have in our minds. On the other hand, if we achieve these practices, we begin to connect with our inner being, and these allow us to verify these things and corroborate them. Then we begin to become aware of the meaning of our existence, but beyond any concept that exists, since it is going to be a truth inside us. In the same way, here in these lectures, we can learn, and we have talked a lot about our psychology, about our psychological aggregates, and how they have our consciousness trapped, and how they constantly lead us to make mistakes, to live a recurring destiny, and also to generate karma. But if we don't do and we don't take out the practices of psychological death from moment to moment, or the practice of watching and praying that we learned in lecture number 21, or the practices of reflective meditation that we learned in lecture number 22, that information about our psychology, about our psychological defects, about the psychological death, will only remain as a theory, and the theory will never be able to get us out of the psychological jail in which we live thanks to our ego. Only the constant practice can do it, can liberate us. Also, we can say the same about the practice of sexual transmutation. We can reflect and we can become aware, or somewhat aware, of the value of our energy and the need to create ourselves internally. But if we don't do the practice of sexual transmutation, if we don't achieve that practice for not having sexual faults and always always raise that energy in sexual practice with our partner, we will simply have in our minds a very valuable information that is of no use to us because we don't put it into practice. So as we can see, the really important thing is not only to do, but to do with diligence and perseverance until you begin to be successful in each one of the practices. All the practices that we have taught from the beginning of the course and those that we will teach in the future, they all give positive results. Therefore, if we are stuck in achieving any of the practices, the important thing is to review what are the aspects that are preventing us from achieving the practice. And today in this lecture, we are going to review the four aspects that most commonly lead us to failure in practices so that we can see which of them are making us stumble, and then we can correct it to start having positive results in the practices that we do. And the first aspect of failure in practices is the lack of concentration. We are concentrated when the consciousness is centered in the action. If our consciousness is our particular God, He never fails. So if we manage to center our consciousness in what we are doing and we don't become distracted, this indeed has a great power. But the most common cause of not achieving a good result when doing a practice is the lack of concentration that we have. The ease with which we get distracted by anything we see or by the thoughts in our mind. Actually, in lecture number 21, where we talk about concentration and relaxation, we gave many guidelines on how to learn to concentrate at all times. Since to develop concentration, we must make the effort to be present, alert, and focused all times in everything that we are doing. It must be our consciousness who is doing its activity and not continue doing them mechanically while we are fantasizing in our minds with all the projections of the ego, or by doing 1,000 of things at once without really paying attention to any of them. In other words, we cannot wait for the moment when we are going to do an esoteric practice to learn to concentrate. But learning to concentrate is an exercise that must be done at all times and that gives incredible results, since concentration is the power that allows us to be successful in whatever we undertake. So, how are we going to achieve concentration? Well, the first thing is to set our goal in our heart, to set our objective. We must be clear in our heart, which is our lower intellectual center, what we are going to do and what we want to achieve by doing it. The second step will always be to have the courage or the encouragement to do it. So, because whenever we have the courage to do something, we do it. But if we don't have like spirit, it is difficult to move the wheel. So that is the second step, to have the correct spirit, the encouragement to do it. And once we put like the sheer, we start doing. Now, what are we gonna do with all the thoughts and all the emotions that are going to start to appear as soon as we try to focus or to try to stay focused in something? Well, easy. We are going to practice the psychological death. We are going to eliminate with the request to our own particular mother, which is the force of love of our consciousness, to eliminate everything that is coming and that is trying to distract us. So if we are focusing on doing this thing or in achieving a practice, let's say the astral projection or meditation, and something is coming to distract us, we immediately eliminate it. We ask the Divine Mother, eliminate this thought, eliminate this defect. If it's an emotion, say you start feeling impatient or you start feeling anxiety, you immediately you observe it and you immediately ask your Divine Mother to eliminate it. my mother eliminated this anxiety, this impatience, and you go back to your heart. You go back to be focused on your objective. And if anything else is coming, you eliminate it and you go back. And that way, we will stay focused until we succeed in what we are doing. So, understanding how important is to do each activity that we are going to do during the day in a concentrated way in order to develop, or rather to exercise the ability to stay focused when doing a practice, we will see that it's very useful for us to always have a sorry sorry to always have a schedule of activities. Sorry, that we can do, let's say, at the beginning of the day to make an easy schedule of all the activities that we must carry out throughout the day, since having that organization will make it easier for us to do everything in a concentrated way. Okay, I'm going to do this now. Okay, I'm going to set the goal in my heart of that activity, and I am going to put the spirit to do it. I'm going to start doing it, and I'm going to stay focused on what I'm doing. And everything that is trying to distract me in my mind, in my emotion, I'm going to eliminate it, and I'm going to stay alert, living the activity in the present moment. And having this schedule of activities is going to be very useful for us because it will help us to not be distracted by thinking about the other things that we have to do, or by planning them while we are doing what we are doing. And also, having an order will allow us to get more out of time. And something that is highly recommended is that when we make our schedule for the day, we first assign the schedules or time for the different esoteric practices that we are planning to do during the day, so that the things of the personality do not occupy us all the time. And I would like to remind you of certain aspects that we saw in lecture number 21, but that is important to recall. Some aspects that is important to take into account in order to concentrate. The first one is to always make an effort to do one thing at a time without thinking of anything else, without interrupting what we are doing to do something else, as we must try. And to not be thinking in things that we have to do later, or not recalling things that we have already done, but to stay focused in what we are doing. If we take these tips, they actually are very useful keys to achieve concentration during the practices and during anything that you undertake during the day. Anyway, if we want to check the lecture number 21, where we explain, we gave the whole explanation with a lot of examples about the concentration, it is recorded here in the page. Let's now check the second aspect of failure in practices. And this is the lacking of faith. If we are full of doubts about something, we will hardly have the right disposition to do it. Hence, to carry out any practice, we must transcend the skepticism and the confusion in which all the concepts that we can have in relation to the practice, like, put us, in order to develop conscious faith. I clarify that when we talk about conscious faith, we are differentiating it from the blind faith, which is just believing in something just because someone told me or because everyone else believes it. Conscious faith is that which is obtained as a result of direct experimentation and verification. And the opposite of faith is doubt. Actually, doubt is our worst enemy since when it appears, we fail, as it always convinces us not to do anything. We must be clear that doubt will only seek to prevent us from seeing results. It takes like our spirit away and keep us hesitating in our minds between whether we do or not until it ends up convincing us not to do it. Therefore, the only way to develop and to feed faith is to put aside the mind, to work on all those concepts and eliminate them, and start doing. A person who does, he knows. And if he already knows, he no longer doubts. So if we have doubts about whether is it possible to astrally project, to consciously astrally project, or if we have doubts about if we will be able to achieve a transcendental meditation, or if we are going to be able to teach, or if it's really possible to transmute this sexual energy in supersex. As long as we remain in doubt, we will never really know. But if one overcomes the state of doubt, if we eliminate all those concepts from our mind and achieve an inner silence, and we put the right mood and do the practice, then we will achieve it. And that will give us a conscious faith in the practice. Once we manage to unfold ourselves consciously to the astral, and we see ourselves moving at will in the fifth dimension, floating or flying at will with our molecular body, then there will already be a conscious faith in that practice. We will have already overcome ignorance and doubt, and we will have achieved faith. So, the important thing here is to be clear that faith is nourished through the works, through the actions. Once we manage to do, once we overcome doubt, and we do, then the faith like is born in us. Let's now see the third aspect of failure in practices, which is fear. That is another thing that totally prevents us from doing. Fear causes everybody to become incompetent and powerless. When someone has fear, doesn't act. The force of fear is actually the contrary to love, and love is in our actions. I want to show you an example to let you know how the fear works, because fear works with our mechanical imagination. So let us imagine a building in the near distance. So we connect a tempered platform of steel about 6 inches of the ground from here to here. We then add some handrail so that everything is safe and secure. From there, at 6-inch height from the ground on a well-tempered steel platform, each one of you will go holding on the handrails, walking on the carpet, and any one of you will imagine that you cannot do it. Everyone believes that they can, right? Or does anyone think that they can? They can. Now, let us imagine the same scenario, but at 400 feet from the ground. Okay, we will put into place the same steel platform with the carpet and the handrails. Then we say, okay, you walk across. Would you go? We will see that no one will walk across. But why? Because immediately fear entered with our imagination. And while we don't resolve our fears, if we become identified with our imagination, our willpower will never be placed into action. Because fear feeds through the mechanical imagination. And if our fear is not resolved, as long as the imagination does not resolve, the will doesn't work. If we don't overcome our fears, we will not be able to have a positive result in a practice. We will not be able to, for example, consciously astral project if we have 100 of concepts about the conscious astral projection that make us feel afraid of doing it. Or we will not be able to meditate because we have lost our willpower because of the mechanical imagination, and is our willpower which allow us to do anything. So, what should we do to overcome fear? That's important. What we need to do is that we must observe, understand, and eliminate all the details of fear that are preventing us from doing. We must observe who is behind that mechanical imagination. And once we discover what is the psychological defect that is projecting in our imagination all kinds of terrifying scenarios that we think could happen, and we disarm all its concepts through the psychological depth, we eliminate all the details of the defect also in our emotion, what it makes us feel, and we also see it as at an instinctive level, like everything that it makes us feel on the skin and throughout the body, and we eliminate it. Then we free ourselves from fear, and we can put like the right mood to start doing and to be successful. That is very important. Let's now see the third aspect for failure in practices. No, that's the fourth, sorry, aspect. And it is the objective. Either lacking objective or having a wrong objective. And why is it important to have a clear objective? Well, if any of you have read The Secret of Success, you know that when we have a clear goal, clear objective, we never fail. But when we don't have a goal set, we become like wonders. And I can show you this with an example. Expert says that out of 10,000 ships that set sail from port with a clear and defined destination, 10,000 of them will succeed. In other words, they will all reach their destination. But now imagine a ship packed with all the necessary provisions, the crew, and everything ready. And the crew asks the captain, "Set sail?" And he replies, "Yes." And they ask him, "In which direction?" And the captain says, "I don't know, still don't know." Then what would happen? The crew would start to say, "Well, let's go to Paris." "No, better towards Germany." Another would say, "No, better we go to New York." And just like that, the entire crew would begin to argue and fight, and they wouldn't end up going anywhere because there was not a clear objective, there was not a set goal. The same when we are doing a practice. We must have a clear objective, and it must be something that we really want to achieve or that we really want to investigate, so that the desire to achieve that goal serves as an impetus to achieve the practice. And so that once we are successful in the practice, we have a clear direction of where to go. For example, if we are going to practice the conscious astral projection, we must always have a clear, defined objective that we really want to achieve. Let it be go to the tribunal of karma, or investigate a certain situation that may be a recurrence or a past life, for example, or to speak with a specific master, or to deepen our study on a certain psychological aggregate. And we are going there to meet our Divine Mother and ask her about some guidelines about how to work this psychological aggregates or what else to work with it, etc. We need to have a defined direction, a course of action. For this, before doing the practice, we need to define what is the objective that I'm going to pursue as soon as I am conscious in the astral plane. What is the reason, for example, that or why I'm looking to speak with a certain master, if that is my objective? I need to be aware of what I'm going to ask him. We cannot show up and just say, hey, how is it going? What's new? Like we do in the physical plane. No. So we must always have a defined and well established objective beforehand. So, how detailed and specific should my objective be? As clear, specific, and detailed as possible. That way, when we find ourselves conscious in the astral plane, we remember our objective and immediately we go for it. Otherwise, we will start thinking there about what to do, about where to go, and we will lose the great opportunity of doing something important, doing some important research, and we will end up becoming fascinated, with something there, and we will start dreaming, and therefore we're going to lose the consciousness that we managed to have at that moment. And should I really want to reach that objective? Yes, because as I was saying, the greater the desire we have to achieve that goal, the greater the spirit that we will put into doing the practice, and definitely having the right mood is very important to be successful. So, having a clear objective, something that we really want, is also very important. So, these are the four aspects. So it's important that we reflect and we to see which of these 4 points are causing us to fail in the practices, are the reason why we haven't achieved certain practice yet. We need to check if we are lacking concentration or if we are lacking faith, because it's doubt that is preventing us from doing, or if it is fear. So if we find any acts of fear, we must ask our Divine Mother to eliminate them. And finally, we must have clear the objective. We must check if that is the reason why we haven't achieved the practice. If we don't have a clear objective in something that we really want to achieve with that practice. With this, if we resolve this fourth aspect, we shouldn't fail. We should no longer fail. And now, well, to finish today's topic, I'd like to let you know that there exist 4 rules that every esoteric student should know. And that when we want to advance in our esoteric work, we must always have these 4 aspects. The first one is that we must have a right longing, that is a desire, because desire is to aspire. Desire is the source of all strength. So we need to have a right longing. The second one is having a right daring, that is to initiate, to take action, to try something, to dare to do it. And the third one is the right action. Sorry. And you will see that one is the one who puts the will to start doing, but the one who actually does is the being. So if we put the correct will, we will succeed, because the being who is in charge of doing, he always succeeds in everything he does. So what we need to have is like the willpower. And the fourth aspect is to know how to keep a noble silence, as we should never speak of what we experience in other dimensions. And in this way, we gain like the trust and the right so that our being continue allowing us to investigate more and more things and deeper and deeper things every time. And well, this has been the topic that I brought to you today. I hope it has been helpful. And as always, I invite you to the next topic where we will learn how to control nocturnal emissions and sexual falls during the process to achieve the perfect chastity, since there are several factors that can affect us to achieve that purpose. And in that lecture, we will analyze both the internal and the external factors that might be or that can be obstacles for us to achieve the perfect chastity. So don't miss that interesting lecture. And thank you very much to all of you who watched the video. And see you next Sunday. Ciao, ciao.